So we want to talk about all things quest rewards and how to implement it. This is a build along. So at the later half of this session, GausRoth is going to walk us through how to get these quests implemented. But yeah, let's get into this presentation. What we will be covering is a few reasons why you should use quest rewards, where you can find quests and the rewards that they offer. What are some good examples of tasks that match some rewards you can earn? What are some issues with the quest system? And how do you add quest rewards at that point? GausRoth's going to walk us through a build session around that. And finally, a Q&A right at the very end. So get those questions ready as we go along. And we'll just jump right into it. So why should I use Quest? So if you are familiar with the Quest gizmo in the world, that's this picture we have on the right-hand side. This is a place where you can find the quests of the world, and you would want to use these quests because they help make your worlds more retentive, right? And so I've listed these three sort of ways in which it does that. The first one being progression, right? So the quests offer a way to sort of visualize how many tasks are required before you earn your reward, right? And it allows for creating quests that link to each other and have like multiple conditions that are required before you can unlock the next section of the quest. So it having that sort of like progression system allows the players to know that there's like some length, some time that they can spend on the game, and then tying a reward to it. It just is a cherry on top because then that is, that return on investment of their time in your world. So the next section here is achievements. And so in regards to that, we talk about how quests oftentimes help players know what is that content that's in your world that's like that they should consider completing. That's like the stuff that we want to surface to them that would be worth their time to go and find and do. Additionally, quests sometimes serve to give the player some insight as to what their like current skill level is and what actions they can take to get to that next skill level. So that might be something along the lines of like, you know, defeat 100 of the like small zombies, right? And then it turns into, defeat 100 bosses, right? So thinking about how as they continue to unlock quests, the request of the quest is it's like more and more like it takes more skill to accomplish, right? Um, and finally, the rewards section here is, the reason why you're going to use a quest is when you tie it to a reward. This is what, like I mentioned earlier, is what gives your players that sense of like, this is my return for that investment of time into your world, right? So it's important to remember that, like, players have the opportunity to spend their time in so many options, right? There's so many entertaining things out there, so many things that they could be spending their time on. And so when they're in your world, spending that time in your world, it's important to sort of like give them the something satisfying and valuable that made it worth their effort. And so, be thinking about how that might fit into the themes of your world and ways that you can let your players feel more important and have a good value proposition from the amount of work that they had to do in your world. And we'll talk more about that here soon on some ways that we're seeing that in existing worlds, right? And then the last aspect here about rewards is that sometimes you can tie it to like a collection, right? So if you think of like sort of like a Pokedex, right? Or things where, almost like coin collections, right? Any kind of types of collections that you have, you can put that in your world so that your players have a way to sort of see like that there's more to fill out, right? There's these gray spots on their progress bar that they want to fill out with your rewards. So sometimes it's not always about like giving them exactly the thing that they want, right? Like, oh, I love the color blue, so I have to have this blue axe. Sometimes it's like give them that sensation of like, well, the blue axe is part of this whole collection, and I can keep working towards filling it out just to have that satisfying feeling of 100%ing that page, right? That's rewards. So where do we see quests and their rewards, right? As it pertains to like your actual quests in your worlds that GausRoth will be like demoing here later on. You'll be able to add those quests to your world and then tie a commerce item or IWP in world purchasable item. You can tie that to your quests, right? And so once you've done that connection, you have these places where you can see those quests and those rewards. So outside of the world, particularly in the mobile app, you'll have the world's details page, right? So like let's look at this image on the right hand side here where we can see GausRoth's Dungeon Delvers on the world page. When you're looking at it on mobile, you can see these rewards listed towards the sort of middle of the page, bottom in this image, but those are the quests that are available in this world, right? You can tap into one of those and see this sort of like drill down quest details version of it, which you see on the right hand side image. And those are like that's a way to sort of like get a glimpse of what you might be getting into as you like before you even get into the work, like, right, you can almost like plan your session out with seeing these quest rewards if you're a player, right? Once you enter the world, there is the loading screen that appears when you're loading into the world that also shows quests and their rewards. So, you know, as another way to sort of like continue to teach your players what kind of content is available in your world. These are some great sort of like early points that they're seeing before they've even begun to explore your world. If this is like their first time, if they're coming back for more, this is just a reminder of like, hey, your bar is this full and it can get, you can finish it out if you just do these last few things. Once you're in the world, that's where you'll see something like the Quest Gizmo, which we saw in the pictures a few slides ago. This is a 3D spatial user interface that sits in your world and is the list of pages of quests that you have put into the world. If they are able to be seen by the player, they'll be on that list. There are some that are hidden behind activation criterias, right? So there's certain achievements, first quests that you have to do first, or uh, values that you have to achieve first on like your persistent variables before those quests appear. So that is, for some of the quests that you may not be seeing, they will eventually appear once you've met those criteria. We'll probably see that briefly when GausRoth is showing us those quest options. And then finally, the player menu. This is the menu that you can bring up on mobile. It'll sort of take up your screen and show you a few different things, right? Your horizon settings, your friends list, all that kind of stuff. But it also is like prominently displaying the quest, very similar to how you see on this image on the right here of this slide. Uh, you have your sort of like horizontal scrolling list of quests that are available in the world as one more place to show the players what they could be doing. So, what are some good examples of tasks that match rewards, right? These are, for me, what we've been sort of looking at, the GausRoth and I, lately. It's these worlds that are doing a really fantastic job of giving player progression options. Now, I will say the it's it's notable that they are sort of like rolling out their own like almost like advanced user interfaces around progressions and upgrades and shops and things like that. Uh, but the quest reward gizmo is that's a way for creators to get started with sort of like architecting the quest that will be available in your world without having to do too much setup in the way that you display it. You don't have to do too much around trying to determine how you list them out and how you page all the different quests. That quest gizmo will do a lot of that for you, right? We're in this image that we see here on the right, we see fire and rescues, ability upgrades and power ups and things like that, more advanced style user interfaces that lend to a pretty sophisticated reward and progression mechanism. So Let's talk about some of the types of rewards that we're going to see here in the next few slides. So we've got short-term progression. This is, for example, like if you were to defeat a boss for a key to unlock a new area, or if you were just like upgrading your equipment, right? Things you can sort of do in the game while the game is, while you're playing it that one in that one session, right? And so long-term progression, this is what you're going to do over multiple sessions, right? So this is like returning to the game to get daily XP boosts or currency, or you're completing missions to add to like a shared world mission count, right? Which we can do now with our new world persistent variables, right? And other uh, more specific rewards like currency, which would be things like giving the players coins or gems to purchase new equipments, levels, pets, etc. And items, which could be in the form of like, defeat 100 zombies for a new sword or a new skin for your sword, something along those lines. Excellent. So let's dive here into a couple worlds where we're seeing some really interesting short-term progression as I defined it there in that last slide. We've got in Shovel Up, you've got players can level up their shovel to dig in higher level zones, right? So that's that concept of like sort of unlocking that next thing that you can do while you're in your one session. You can continue to come back and level up some more, but there's definitely this feeling of like you can do quite a bit of leveling up and progressing in the amount of in the short amount of time that you might be playing your game, or a long amount of time if you're a hardcore gamer, right? And so what's important about this way that this short-term goal is being displayed is that the player can clearly see how to upgrade the shovel, right? In that bottom right corner, you see how many gems it would take to upgrade that shovel, right? In Super Strike, what we see is that the player can see a gun level on their, in their locker, where they can see what it would take to level up that gun and therefore get some rewards associated with that gun. For example, on the screenshot we see here, it says 30 eliminations to get to the next level. So this one shows that, there's been 3 eliminations out of 30. And so if you get it to 30, you get 750 coins, you get a new title, you get a new sticker, right? And so that is the additional rewards you get on top of your level up, right? But it's basically like keep playing the game right now, and you get these things that are like super attainable, right? So long-term progression here in Shovel Up, we see daily rewards that will allow you to get some extra gems. As we said, with those help for the leveling up of the shovel, some dollars, some chance boosters, right? And as the days go on, the reward gets better and better, right? So you're definitely incentivized to come back for more, so that you really get those sweet drops there of like a ton of dollars and a ton of chance potions that help you progress even faster. We have the world persistent variable here that is how many buildings have been saved, right? And so it says 30,000 buildings, right? That's a lot of buildings required. That's a lot of play along, it would be very challenging to do as a single, as an individual person. But as players come in the world at different times of the day in different parts of the world, right? They're all contributing to this one shared goal for the reward to be an epic thing, right? Like in this case, it says you get a whole avatar if that, if the community as a whole reaches this number, right? So that's really exciting to see and very enticing to go in there and try to help reach that goal. All right, let's look at some currency rewards. Next slide here. So on Super Strike, what are we seeing? We see this quest view on the menu where there's just a ton of different like pages. There's 12 pages of different quests, as far as this screenshot goes, where it's giving you many different tasks you can complete. When you complete those tasks, you can get currency, these coins, and these coins allow you to unlock player card customizations, new equipment such as guns, gadgets, and abilities. And those, you just feel like when you have a lot of like options of how to get your different kinds of your different values or amounts of currency. You can almost sort of tell the difference in how challenging one quest is over the other. So maybe, for a while you try doing the easier one so you can get a whole lot of quest completions and just these like quick bursts of coins. And then, you sort of have in the back of your mind how how you need to progress to like get some of these bigger dumps of coins. Like for example, win 23 games in a row, or yeah, 23 games in a row of team deathmatch. A pretty intense goal, but having a page like this where it lays it out gives you a chance to sort of like pick and choose the ones that you try to work on today and think about over the week. Really fun example of quests pages. This is like similar, like I said earlier, is your quest gizmo is sort of having you visualize it in this way as well. So, note that you can always set up your quest image of your rewards so that players, similarly to like this, how it's saying like, I know I'm going to get 10,000 coins, right? Like you can do similar tricks in the images that you pick to show as rewards for your quests. So more on that when GausRoth shows us. So here on the bottom, we've got fire and rescue, which you can earn gems from completing milestones of how many missions you've completed, right? And so those gems can be used to buy more customization options to personalize it to match your style more, right? And so let's look at item rewards in Shovel Up. We talked about those daily rewards, and for the specifically for this slide, what I want to focus on is like the items themselves that are being granted to you, right? So we've got these chance potions, which are consumable items that correlate to the game in a strong sense because the point of the game when you're shoveling, right, is like you're sort of playing a chance game to see whether the reward that you expect to come out comes out, right? Or uh, whether like high value items come out of the area that you're digging, right? You play your little mini game to dig, and whatever comes out, that's going to give you coins so you can sell, or the reward that you need to like complete your collection for the zone, right? So chance is a big portion of this game, shovel up. And so, any chance you can get potions is, that's just going to make it a lot easier for you when you go to do your digging. But something that's really clever about it too is, it is still a chance, right? It's still you still don't know whether you're going to get it or not. So it makes it like slightly easier, but it's not like guaranteed. So that's a fun way to sort of make sure that there's some level of like it's not the total easy way out, right? Like you still gotta um, test your luck, and that's the fun part of a shovel up in fire and rescue. So towards the middle of those milestones, you might be able to see that there's an item there that you can earn, and that's just more equipment that you can have, like I mentioned earlier, to match your style. Definitely, think about how in holiday times the rewards are only sometimes you can make them where they're only available for a limited time, right? So that's such a cool concept to have of like I can, if I was playing in during the Halloween event, I'll have access to this like limited time reward that I can show off to others who might not have played during that time. They're going to be like, "Oh, when did you get that?" Right? And they're going to want to know. They're going to want to be ready for that next holiday event so they can have those holiday themed ones, or just know that they don't want to miss another holiday because they want to get that thing, that item that was only available during that one time in 2025 during Halloween, right? So just another way to think about a limited time event rewards. And let's move on here to what are some issues with the system. So it's important to know that when you're using the quest system that exists right now, that you need to know the limitations or any issues that might be going on, just so that as you're developing it, you can be aware of like what are moments where you might need to submit a bug report or try to troubleshoot it in a way where you don't feel like you can't use this system at all. So we wanted to surface some of those for you now. So then one of the main things to note is the quest rewards option is only available to you once you've created your first commerce item. So if you have been trying to add a quest reward and you notice that it wasn't visible, like the quest reward option wasn't visible on your quest itself, then this is like due to this limitation of needing to go create that commerce item first. So go make that, come back to the quest and see if it shows up there. You should be able to move forward once you've got that IWP created. So right now, if you are in, if you try testing consumable items as a reward, you may run into an issue where the reward can be claimed multiple times. That is something that has been reported. Feel free to continue to make any reports around that issue if you run into that as well. More logs and things that the meta team can look at, I think the better. That is, in the meantime, you can think about how you could work around that idea of like the items being claimed too many times, right? You can sort of put some barriers to make sure that they don't break your game or scoring system or whatever because they're able to claim the reward too many times. Alternatively, you can use durable items. Just note that that's more for things like, things that are meant to stick onto the player, not necessarily like boosters or like we talked about the chance potions, things like that might not be ideal. If it is working for you though, and the quest reward only claims once, then great. You know, move forward knowing that that's how it's supposed to work. Quest advertising. So this is in regards to this world's detailed pages, this image you see here on the right. The quests that are showing up there, you're not able to select those. Those are just appearing sort of on their own. So just be mindful of that. Won't be able to like really guide the player towards like any specific quest. Might be a good idea to try that during like your social media moments, right? When you're sort of advertising your world on Instagram or things like that, you might go say like, "Hey, go check these new quests out, new quest drops for the holiday season." Maybe you list some of the tasks out as a fun way to sort of get people over to your world. And then finally, here we've got reward availability. This is option not shown if no IWP.
So the only way you can get an image to show up on a quest is if it is a quest reward or it has a IWP tied to it. So if you just create a regular quest with no IWP, there will be no image.
Excellent, excellent. So, yeah, I mean, this leads us to our next section here, which is where GausRoth is going to walk you through how to set up a quest with an IWP as a reward.
All right, so in order to create a request for the reward, before we even get into this slide, you do need to create an IWP. We're not going to go through the process of creating an IWP because there will be a talk, I believe, next week on that. And there's been talks in the past, but you do need to create an IWP. Now, how do we create a quest? Well, once you're in the desktop editor, you click on Systems, go to Quest, and then this panel will appear. And you click on this plus sign to create your quest. And it gives us this panel, which gives us a lot of fields that we have to fill out. The quest ID is the string you're going to use in TypeScript to do something with this quest. The name is what's going to show on the quest gizmo. The description will show on the quest gizmo. Display rank is only if it's like a quest that has a follow-up quest. That's the only time you're ever going to use rank. So if you have like kill 10 zombies and the next one is kill 100 zombies, you would have display rank 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Now, who can see this quest? It's right now it's everyone and internal. So everyone means everybody, and then internal means only people that are editors or testers on the world will be able to see it. So it's for testing purposes. Quest type, you have simple and you have tracked. So simple quests are your quests that you're going to have to encode, mark as complete for the player. Tracked are the ones that you can tie a PPV to, and then once it hits a certain threshold, it'll pop for them. We can then set a duration criteria, which I'll go in another slide, and then we can apply this reward item, which is optional. Again, if you do not have any IWPs in the world, you will not see this. and then you can just hit the select item, and if you have any IWPs, it'll pop up. And for tracked quests, we have two additional options. We have activation criteria and success criteria, which we'll go over in another slide. Now for the duration criteria, we have a couple options. We have a date that you can put in for when it will release. So what that means is people will be able to see it on this date. If it's not the same as the start date, they will not be able to start working on it, but they'll be able to see it. Now, your start date will be the day that they can actually start putting progress towards that quest. And then the end date is when that quest expires, and they'll no longer be able to work progress on that. Now, if you don't want any of this stuff, you don't have to fill it out. It's completely optional. If it's blank, then it'll be there right then and there and always. Next one is the activation criteria. So this is for tracked quests. And this is for, say you have that kill 10 zombies, kill 25 zombies. Now for my first one, kill 10 zombies, I don't need an activation criteria because it's my first rank. Now, if I had a second rank that I wanted to show up, I would then here use this PPV for my zombie kills and then set it to 20 or 10 or whatever. And then once that player reaches that, it will then appear in the quest gizmo. Now for the success criteria is when do we want it to pop? So for example, the first one was 10 zombie kills, so I'd put 10 here. Now, along with the last one, the activation criteria and the success criteria, we can add more than one objective. So it could be 10 zombies and 10 goblins, and then it'll pop. Now, that is all I have for the slides. I will go into the desktop editor and show you how to do it for realsies. And here we are in the desktop editor. So I do have a commerce item created here, and I do have a PPV created here. And I'm going to do that for the tracked quest. I do have a quest already created, which is a simple quest, but I'm going to go through the process of creating a tracked quest. So we're going to go to hit this plus button, and I'm just going to give it an ID of 002. We'll call this tracked quest, and we can call this, give it a description of tracked quest with reward. I'm not going to give it a display rank because there's only one. I want everybody to see it, and then the quest type will be tracked. So I have this duration. I don't need to worry about that. The activation, again, it's the first one if there was more than one, so I don't need to worry about that. And then the success, I'm going to hit define, and I can add my PPV. So if you don't have a PPV, nothing will show up, so you'll have to go and create one. And then we're going to select our PPV, and then I'm going to say you have to hit it 5 times. Save, and then we can apply our reward, and then we hit create. Now we can see at our quest reward, the second one did pop up, and we have our images. So now I'm going to go and show you the code on how this works. So I have the simple one and the tracked one that's attached to the gizmo. So let me open this here, and this is the simple one. This is attached to the quest gizmo itself. Need to get rid of this. And I'm connecting to 2 events. I'm connecting to our Focus UI, which is a new one that was released in the last, either the last update or the one before that. We're able to use this. And what that does is when the player focuses on a UI, and I'm using this entity because I'm on the quest gizmo, it will fire on player focus. It'll give me the player variable and the entity that the player focused on. So if you had a reference to a different entity, then you could listen to that and it'll pass that variable. But what I'm doing is when the player focuses on the UI, I want to make sure that they have not already created this because I don't want to keep setting the achievement as complete if I don't need to. So we check if player.has completed achievement, and I pass in the quest ID, which I have saved up here. So this is 001 is the quest ID I created for the simple one. The tracked one is 002. I'm not worrying about that one for now, but I'm saving it up here. That way, if say I was using quest ID more than once, which I am, I only have to change it here instead of changing it twice in the script. So that's why I have it up here. So if this returns true, that the player has not completed it, that's what this exclamation mark here is for. The player, I will then set the achievement as complete for the player. So player set achievement complete, the quest ID, and then true. So I'm toggling it to true. And then I have another event I'm connecting to right here, which is on achievement complete. This sends us a player and a script ID, and I have it call on achievement complete. So when the player completes a quest, it'll fire this, and we can get that. We can listen for it. And when it fires, I'm going to have console out. I'm going to have this log print just to show me that it's working. Now you can do a lot of different things here. You can play a sound effect, you can play a visual effect, you can have a whole bunch of fireworks playing off. Whichever fits your use case is where you would want to put this stuff for when an achievement is completed. Now for the trigger event, for our tracked event or tracked quest, I'm connecting to our on player enter trigger, which gives us a player. And when the player enters the trigger, I'm going to get a PPV, which I was having issues with it. Let me just move this down here. We figured out what the problem was. So I'm going to set a value. I'm just calling it value. It doesn't matter what you call it. To the player's rewarding quest, tracked quest PPV. So it's this.world.persistent storage. We're getting the player variable for the player with this name. And then we're going to increase it by 1. And then all we're doing is setting that PPV again. So this.world.persistent storage.set player variable, player name, or a PPV name value. And since it's a tracked quest, the quest system in the back is taking care of it. We don't have to worry about setting any quest related things. We don't have to worry about marking as complete for the player. It's doing all that for us. So that's all we have to do. So I'm just going to save that. And I'm going to run the world. So when I enter this trigger, which is right in front of this, it should pop update. Now, first time it did take a while for it to actually update. There we go. Now it kind of updated. Now, if I enter this, our on UI focus ran and it completed our quest. And down here we have player object has completed achievement script ID 001. So that's how we can track that. And we got a reward. Now, if I exit out and go back in, and now that one is complete as well. And I don't know if I can check it from here, but if I go into my menu, I don't know if it'll work in here. Might have to. I don't think these menus work, but if I were in the preview, would I hit this and then I'll be able to see all the quests and I can claim the quest from there. And if actually, let's see how long it takes. Let me try to open up a preview and see if it works. And then I can show you the claiming process as well. And then there's a different thing, like it might not work in here because it's not a published world. Yeah, it's not letting me do it. So I won't be able to actually show that process, but you would open up your menu and you'd be able to claim the reward from it. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.